Hi guys, welcome back to the Lit Life, where we talk about everything lifestyle and literature. I'm super excited to be here for my second installment of the Grad School Series. Today we'll be talking about the things they don't tell you about going from an HBCU to a PWI. And not all of these things will be specific to going from an HBCU to PWI. Some of them may just be things I didn't know about going to graduate school, but definitely the first two are major things I was unprepared for, specific to going from an HBCU to a PWI. So if you have not seen my first video, which was on the topic of how I survived graduate school, go ahead and pause this video and click the link below so that you can watch the series in order. So without further ado, let's get into this video. So the number one thing I was unprepared for when transitioning from my HBCU, Philander Smith College, to the PWI I went to for graduate school, SUNY Albany, was the isolation. I remember my professors in undergraduate would always tell us that we were minorities. And I explained why that just really didn't make sense to me. I had never been in an instance where I was a minority. Again, I'm from the south side of Chicago. I went to a HBCU for college. I've always been surrounded by black people my whole life, everywhere I went. But when I got to SUNY Albany, that was not the case. I also shared in my last video that I worked in a lab that was, the building was about 3 stories. I was the only black person. And while I had some wonderful friends and mentors in my lab and in the building, none of them share my same cultural identity. None of them share my language, my food, my political stances. A lot of times people didn't share. And so I felt extremely alone. And to be honest, that was a huge challenge for me, especially when it came to believing that I could succeed in the program. I didn't have anyone that looked like me to look up to, and representation is important, okay? You need to see someone that looks like you doing something that you are attempting to do. The number 2 category that I was unprepared for was all the microaggressions. And if you don't know what microaggression is, the easiest way for me to define it is death by 1,000 cuts. Maybe the first time you experience like something that's microaggressive, it doesn't impact you. Maybe the 3rd time, the 5th time, but by the 50th or 60th time, right, or the 100th time, that stuff starts to get into your subconscious mind, and before you know it, you'll be like trying to accomplish something and you'll be discrediting yourself based off of microaggressive behavior that somebody else perpetrated against you over and over again. And I'll give you guys an example of something microaggressive that I experienced. We had taken a test and the whole class like flopped. It was not a good test. It was not hot at all. And it was so bad that we had to go to the professor to get our exams back so that this person could like figure out what went so wrong during the lecture that none of us really got a good grasp of the material. And I remember sitting there and getting my exam, and I was kind of like ashamed because I wasn't used to failing exams and stuff like that. And I remember before this person gave me my paper back, they said, oh, I only gave 1 perfect on this particular question, and I can't believe it was you, that you got it. So I kind of sat there because I was like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do here? So I just sat there probably looking crazy, and I don't know, maybe counting the seconds until I could get out of there because I was embarrassed enough that I didn't get high marks on my exam. And then when I could be celebrating that I was the only one that got a perfect on, one of the questions, I have to sit here and listen to you tell me, oh, I can't believe it was you. Like, what? So that's something that was like microaggressive. And again, Maybe if that was the only one time that something like that happened, I could just like let it roll off my back. But things like that happen over and over again. Well, I don't even know if that was microaggressive, but it was pretty tame compared to the outright racism that I experienced. And so one example that comes to my mind of like outright, I'm in your face being racist that I experienced was, and this was actually hurtful. So there was another girl that worked in my lab, and not the girl that sat right behind me that I was really close with, which thank God she was there that day and she took up for me. So I think her and we were having a discussion that didn't even really involve the other person. I think she came in later and asked what we were talking about. So we were having a discussion about how the prison system disproportionately targets minorities. We both agreed on this topic. It was not a sticky conversation at all. And so the third party person in the lab comes in and they're like, oh, what were you guys talking about? And I was like, oh, we were talking about how the prison system disproportionately targets minorities. Do you know what she said? I think that's representative. So in my mind, I'm like, nah, sis don't understand what she just said. Let me ask her. I learned this in my job. Let me ask a clarifying question. So I said, so you think I'm more likely to be a criminal just because I'm black? Yes, that's what she said. Yes. Okay, so now this is something that's probably universal. I did not know how broke I was going to be when I was in grad school. Y'all, like so I had a scholarship that paid me a stipend while I was in school. And one thing that I'm not too proud to admit is my spending habits are not very healthy. They've gotten a lot better over the years, but they were not very healthy at the time. And I'm an emotional spender. So every time I was sad, I would just like buy things. And it wasn't even like necessarily material things. I would buy food. I love food. Like food is like a passion of mine. And I've actually been fasting this week because I desperately need to change my relationship to food. Yes, when I was in graduate school, even though I was getting paid a stipend, I would like spend it all. To the point where like I had 2 jobs in grad school, which is like a huge no. Like I definitely had to keep that a secret. I definitely could not tell my committee that I had a job. I was able to tell a couple of my friends and they kept my secret. But yeah, I had 2 jobs in graduate school, so I was probably sleepwalking through life, but you be brokety broke when you in school. Like I had to do something. I had to pay for all those lobster rolls from Troy Kitchen. And if I'm being honest, I wish I could eat a lobster roll right now. So yeah. Also, coming from an HBCU to a PWI in terms of being prepared for the lab assignments that we would get, we did not have a lot of resources to have extremely sophisticated or extremely involved laboratory experiments when I was in undergrad. Now, my professors were brilliant, and so they did the best that they could do with what they had. But honestly, like we didn't have a lot. And so I also needed help like navigating a lab that was fully equipped. Like there was just a lot of things that I just didn't know because I had never had access to those things. And so early on, when I was too prideful to ask for help or too ashamed that I didn't know something to ask for help, which is still pride, I suffered. And so I had to quickly learn who to depend on in the lab, because like everybody in the lab is busy. They really don't have time to help you. they only help you if they are really nice and like kind of like feel bad for you, like, oh, she doesn't know, let me help her. But they really don't have time for that, and they really don't have to help you. The next thing or topic that I'll talk about is failing more than you succeed. So when I was in college, you get 3 hours to complete a lab. You complete the lab in your 3 hours, whatever. You do the lab report. You turn it in. You're on your merry way. That's it. You lit. Okay? You lit. Finished. So, when I got to graduate school and I did the same experiment every day over and over again for months and it still didn't work sometimes, needless to say, I was very, very, very frustrated. Okay? Almost to the point of throwing a tantrum. Not like a falling on the floor, kicking and screaming kind of tantrum, but like a forget this, I'm ready for a different project kind of tantrum, because it's not working and I feel like I'm wasting my time every day and I don't want to do this. You fail a lot more than you succeed, but when you succeed, it's a huge victory. It's like watching the ball drop in New York City. It's like, it's a whole thing. It's a whole event. You'll wish you were dressed up for it. People might interview you about it. Students from other campuses and universities might be calling you to hear about it. Like, it's a thing. So those were some of the things that I felt like I was unprepared for, going from an HBCU to a PWI, and in some cases just going from college to graduate school. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and look forward to the next installation. I think the next video is going to be what I loved about graduate school, just because I feel like my last video was a little bit negative and kind of made graduate school look like something that nobody should ever do their entire lives because it's so bad. And even though I had a hard time, like, I'm here, I survived. My character is stronger, my faith is stronger. Like, it's it's not that bad, okay? Like, I know these first two videos I made it seem like a special kind of torture, which it can be sometimes, but there are good days, there are fantastic things that come of it. And so my next video, I'm gonna make it a little happier. I'm gonna tell y'all maybe my top 5 highlights or something from graduate school. I kind of got to think about it, but yeah, I don't want y'all watching this series, especially if you're thinking about going to graduate school. I don't want you watching this series thinking that it's something you absolutely should not do. Now, there are some things that you should consider before you go, especially when determining which institution and what kind of institution to go to. And we can talk about those later in this series as well. But don't be afraid to go. Like, you can make it. You can survive. I'm living proof. I'm not a baby genius, and I did it. And so that means that you can too. So remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, share this video with someone that you think could benefit from it, and I'll see you in the next one.